Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I want to tell you how much I appreciate you coming back and giving your support time and time again. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stacy Gray, and I'm a former labor organizer and community activist who walked away from her career to homeschool her two children, youngest two children. At the time, they were in public schools and being bullied by not only the students but also by the teachers, in my opinion, because the person who runs the classroom runs the show. So if you allow it and you don't address it, you are consenting to it by your omission, right? By not saying anything. And so, after a series of events that occurred from August of 2019 until December 2019, after having at least 2 years of battles in other school districts trying to find a balance because there has been no representation in the area where I live, I decided at the end of those 2 years of that battle with the public schools to remove and withdraw my students and to homeschool them, to educate them myself, to take on the task of making sure that they were and are educated properly and also nurtured emotionally. And the title to this episode is Just in the Nick of Time. And I named it that excuse me, because I was thinking about if you go back, you'll hear the introduction of the pilot, the journey, which I tell about the story, like how I came to the decision to homeschool, and then I go on to talk a little bit about part of our experience as homeschoolers, and then I talk about my past that brought us there, that kind of helped give me that courage to be able to say, if it's going to be done, it's going to be done by me. You're a walking, talking miracle. And so here I am again as I go back and I think about the time that I finally made the decision to homeschool them was just in the nick of time, because in January 2020, when and there's a video I'm going to insert in here with the audio clip I'm going to share with you guys from back at that time when I first started homeschooling. I had no idea what was in front of me. I had no idea that COVID was right around the corner, as nobody else did. But and now it's May 2022, and here recently there have been a lot of things that have happened in this country that are quite terrifying. One being in Buffalo, New York, the 10 people who lost their lives, black people, being just in the grocery store. That's terrifying to me as a black woman. And the other being just today, a school shooting in Texas, where I believe so far 19 children have lost their lives. And when I think about, I was reminded of when Naima was in her last semester in public school. I was at work and there was a bank robbery. Someone robbed a Wells Fargo bank not far from her school, and they locked the school down and they locked the children in the classrooms. And I didn't even know it. I think I got like a message, an auto message or an email or something, like there was something happening at the school. I didn't even know it until after it was over. And she told me about how they locked the school, and if you had to go to the bathroom, you would have to go in the garbage can in the closet. And that day, of course, she had to go to the bathroom. And, of course, to her, it was cleaner than the actual bathrooms because their bathrooms were always filthy. And she went in there and she used the bathroom in the closet. And the funny thing about that day is she came out of the closet. One of the students in the class, everybody was kind of trying to shush him because she was coming behind him and he was talking about those niggas, right? So that just goes to show you that her experience was equally as horrific as my son Nasir's experience in the public schools. But I was reminded as I watched the news in the news feed today how powerless I felt that day once I even found out. And it just kind of snowballed. And I remember 9/11 when the Twin Towers were hit. My kids were at school. And as I'm sure lots of parents called the schools, of course I did, and they said, no, they're safer here than anywhere. And I thought to myself as I walked away from my job that day, not forever, but on that day, saying, I've got to go get my children, that they were telling me that they were safer with them than with me. That was the safest place for them to be. And I thought, how can it be safer there when somewhere where 3, 4, 5, 6,000 people were just attacked. And you have a school full of children, for which four at that time, I had just the older four, the adult four were kids, are in that school. And so my prayers go out to all these families who have lost their children. I can't even imagine. I know that day back in 2019 when Naima told me about her experience at the school, how helpless I felt, thinking, wow. And they locked the school down. Parents were not allowed to go get their kids. Because, of course, if you think about it, it makes sense. If there's an active shooter, you don't want to be on campus, and you definitely don't want parents running around and kids running out of the schools, right? Becoming targets. But it just makes me say it was just in the nick of time. And that wasn't the only thing. When COVID became here in the Bay Area, when California began to do lockdowns, and they were like, okay, restrictions and masks and, stay at home orders, what it was called. And the school shut down, and people were devastated. Like, what do you mean the schools? What? We had already been there. So as other students struggled to get online, then the teachers struggled to figure out how to do Zoom classes because they had never had to do it before, in all fairness. As everybody was scrambling to figure, how is this going to work? What do? We had already been there. See, in January, when I said we're not going back, and then when we begin the process of deconditioning, when we begin the process of accepting that this really happened to us, it's not our faults, it hurts, it happened, but we're here now, and this is what we're doing. Other people were going through that 3 months later, and we were just coming out of the first wave of the experience of understanding that this is the way things are now. And this is the way they're going to be, and we're going to have to figure it out from here. So as I stated before, I'm not like, oh, you need to homeschool. It is the best thing in the world. And I'm not like, no, don't homeschool. School's got all the answers. I'm saying that sometimes when you have an inkling deep down inside, and it keeps you up late at night, and you think about it over and over again, and you're thinking, can I do this? It may be just in the nick of time. Now, I don't want to minimize or victim blame, which I hate the word victim, but victim blame the people who have been hurt, or to say if the parents had been homeschooling their kids. No, because anything can happen to anybody, anywhere, right? I don't want to take that angle. That's not what I mean to say at all. I'm just saying that this may be that thing that you're like, okay, I'm done. And it's okay. See, I think back when I raised my older kids, I didn't know about homeschooling. And if I did, it was, to me, for the very elite, for people who were well educated, for people who came from a much different background than what I come from. And so I didn't know, and we suffered because of it. The public schools, if you go back and you listen to a walking, talking miracle, you understand what I mean when I say I had some troubles with my older two kids. Therefore, my two younger kids had troubles as well, as by default. And I was raising these kids in a public school system that was not ready for them, not in my neighborhood. And so I spent a lot of time fighting all the time for them. I did not want them labeled. I did not want them medicated. I didn't want any of those things. And so as a result, there was a lot of times that my son was suspended, my oldest, over and over and over again. He was actually expelled from the Detroit public schools to be enrolled into an alternative school, for which he was suspended and eventually put out of there too, because they didn't have the resources to help him. But more importantly, I didn't know how to help him. I didn't know what he needed. And because in those failing school districts, there was no social workers. You definitely didn't want a social worker coming to see you, because that meant somebody called protective services, right? But there was no social workers. There was no voice there saying, hey, I think I can help you. It's either special education and medication or nothing. And then the stigma of mental health. There is no place, and there, well, at the time, there was no place for children who were born under the influence and who survived and who dared to attempt to thrive and put it together, and families that came back together, like me, who actually was there to raise my children after that, who actually got it together enough to do that. There were no resources there for us. And so right now, my son Nasir was read the book. As part of his reading requirement, it's called Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. And it's written by Jawanda Kunjufu. And when I looked up this book, it was written in 1983. It was published. And so if you've heard or listened to any of my other broadcasts, then you know that for an ELA requirement, I require both Nasir and Naima to read an American classic, something like Romeo and Juliet, for Naima, The Outsiders, and then also Black literature. Nasir's read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Naima has read Across Five Aprils. She's read Black Girl, White School. So a variety of things that they read from. And so and then they do a snapshot. For Nasir, he does a snapshot of what is his take on the book. And also they do what's like the back of the book. What makes somebody pick up the book and read it? You see the cover, but it's what you read on the back of the book. So teaching them how to, as to be one, authors, to learn how to write, and how to summarize something. How do I test your knowledge? If you can tell me about the book, if you can have enough information without giving away the book, that I want to read the book now. That you've written that back of the book snapshot. And so as he has been describing to me what he's read and about the numbers, I realize that I've lived that. I've lived this book through my older son. And when I looked and saw that the book was published in 1985, 83 rather, I said, man, that's even before he was born. He's 30 something, 32, 33, 33, I believe. And so I realized that I've lived that through him. But they didn't give him special education or medicine or anything. But he lived the middle school to prison pipeline, because he is in prison right now to this very day. And part of that, I'm sure, is his colorful past that came from my colorful past. And there being no resources to help us. And I know he had a choice. And I gave him as many choices as I could. But I was young and ignorant. I didn't know. If I knew then what I know now, how many of us have made that statement? I would have homeschooled them all. It was four of them. We would have had a little tribe. We were already poor. What did we have to lose? What difference did one of those little side jobs or part-time jobs or some of the time jobs or 8-month jobs I worked, what difference did it make in our lives? I thought that that was my redemption, that it was the only way. And so I fought. And so nobody, like, I don't think one person ever, and not that they knew, maybe they didn't, right? Maybe from where I was, if you look around where you are, that's who surrounds you. Maybe they don't know any different than you do. But I knew some people, and I know some people who have come from some very not so humble means, who had a lot of knowledge, a lot of education, very financially stable, who never shared with me. And I don't blame them, but it's just a fact that they never said, hey, there's another way to do this. So that's why I'm here today. And that's why I've been sitting here to tell you there's another way to do it. If you're having that moment that you're wondering, like, what the heck, and this thing is getting out of control, and the school is against you, they're not on your side, they don't like your kid, they're saying that your kid's the trouble kid, and you've been labeled as the difficult parent, whether father or mother. Don't stop being that parent. Remove your child. Find another way, right? Find another way. Work midnights. I don't know. Homeschool them. But if I knew what I know, I would have pulled my kids out of that school, especially my older two. I would have taken them out because they gave me hell the entire time. But that's all they knew to do, because that's all I knew was hell too. And the younger two weren't too far behind. And so when I think about what's happened in our communities and what's happening in our communities, I think that we are in that just in the nick of time moment. I think we're here now as a collective. And if we look around and we don't see that we're in that moment, then we may miss it. There are so many times that I didn't know, especially when it came to making a decision to homeschool my kids. I didn't know I was in that just in a nick of time moment until it had already passed. Like I was living it. It was April of 2020, and I was coming back from visiting. I have a daughter who moved to Georgia a couple of years after I lived there, and I left, and she's still there. And I went to visit her, and then I went to Michigan because my used to be the youngest was pregnant, and I visit with them because I didn't know if the country was going to shut down or what was going to happen. So I definitely wanted to lay eyes on them and love them and encourage them. And then um, because I traveled with one of my other daughters who lives here in California, it was a good thing for Nasir and Naima and myself to just get in a car and ride. And we just drove with my daughter across the country, and it was absolutely beautiful. And when they got there, we stayed at an Airbnb in Atlanta, and there were some kids next door. And these kids were so excited to see my kids. Like, yes, other kids, right? It was about three or four of them, siblings. And so they began to play with my children. And it also reaffirmed for my children that, oh, it's not me. These kids are like, hey, right? And so it just goes back to the just in the nick of time moment. I didn't know in January when I said we're not going back. I said in December. I knew it then. And I stood up and I made that decision and I stuck with it. I sent those certified withdrawal letters. I sent them and I was free. We were free. And it turned out to be a just in a nick of time moment. And there are so many other moments in this journey. And I'm telling you, you may be in your just in the nick of time moment. Because what was happening at that time, I did not know. As I was speaking to Nasir earlier, he was sharing with me about the book and what it said and how is it still relevant to this day. Some of this sounds so familiar. Um, and I said to him that there were so many times that I wasn't sure if I had made the right decision. But what I could not say is, had I left him in that school, had I left Naima in those schools, them in those schools, what I would be seeing today. If I would have children who can read on a 12th grade level, if I would have children who can do higher levels of math, right? Quantum reasoning, algebraic equations, writing them, understanding, being able to solve them, being authors themselves, having started books but haven't finished yet, um, working and playing chess every day, working on creating content, being entrepreneurs. Would we be here today um, if I had made that decision 2 years ago to leave them where they were? I can't say with the certainty that the schools, I'm almost positive that we would not have had the same result now that I had then, right? And when I think about my son, who's also an amazing author, who has a book that I'm working to publish for him, I'm just waiting for new chapters. He sends them to me, but he is absolutely gifted and always has been very bright, very gifted, even from his humble beginnings. Extraordinary young man who didn't have the chance to grow the way he was supposed to grow. But I also believe his arrest and subsequent incarceration was a just in the nick of time moment. And those with ears to hear, if you're a mother or a father, then you understand what I mean. Though he's there, and I want him out desperately, I'm so happy when I hear from him that I can even hear his voice. And I know it's not easy. I know it's not. He is paying a very high price. He made a mistake. He did. He was wrong. And it took me years to admit that to myself, that my son was wrong. No matter what the background, no matter what the reason, he was wrong. He didn't have to do what he did. But he is paying a very high price for it. But I also know that if I had capitalized on the just in the nick of time moments that were in my past, that I was too young and too foolish to even see, to understand, that maybe there would be a different story for him and for my grandchildren, right? Even for my children, because he is an amazing young man, right? So I want to play this recording for you. Now, this was recorded in January of 2020. And it's when one of the first recordings I made. I made a couple of them because I wanted to chronicle what we were doing and how we were doing it and how we got there. I wanted to be able to look back on those moments and to see where we were, to record it, to document it. That's a better word. To document these moments, these other humble beginnings that we started. So I'm gonna play it. It's in two parts. One of them's about 30 seconds, and then you'll hear that Nasir comes up, and I stop, and then I restart recording. And it's about a 5 minute recording, but I'll let it play through because there are some things you're gonna hear that you've already heard if you've listened to other messages or other episodes. You've already heard some of these statements. So if you've listened, as I did when I heard this, I said, man, I didn't even know then that I was speaking into right now. So I want to share that with you. Hold on. Today, right? Today is January 1st, 2020. The calendar has switched from 2019, the Gregorian calendar, to 2020. And so part of operating in a new life and part of removing yourself from conditioning is not letting people when they tell you when your dream starts, when your life starts. When I was recording, that was part one. Hold on, let me switch to the rest of it. Okay, so like I was saying before my son came and created a blooper. So you can't let other people dictate when your today starts, when your dream starts, when you break that cycle of conditioning. And a lot of times we do the same thing without even knowing it. We just find different ways to do it. And so part of breaking that cycle of conditioning, especially for us as black people, black women, black men, black families, is we have to start doing things according to the way we are led by the spirit or the ruach. For those who understand what that means, it is the spirit. And so by understanding that and by doing those things differently, that's when we begin to be set free. Because you can be in bondage and think you're free. Like Harriet Tubman said, what did it mean when she said she would have freed thousands more if they only knew they were slaves? That meant they were conditioned, that they were, as it says in Exodus, and I'm sorry I don't remember the exact chapter, but it says in Exodus that the people didn't want to listen to Moses anymore because they were so discouraged by their oppression. And sometimes we think that because this is what it is, this is what it's been, then we've got to learn how to navigate through it. Even though we're discouraged, even though we're beat down, even though we're sometimes, though with financial stability, even at our lowest moments, at what point do we decide that we're going to break free? At what point do we decide? When do we stop allowing other people to tell us when and how and what is best for our families, right? And so that is what today is. Today we start. Today, well, we started last week. You know what I mean? And so it took a minute for it to move through our spirit because there was just like this moment that of devastation for us, understanding that we are coming out of a system of conditioning, that we are leaving a place of conditioning. And what that conditioning does is it made us comfortable in our oppression, and it was predictable. And now, sorry about that, I just want to wipe this off. Here comes the time of coming out. Like, we laid around and watched TV. The Most High was absolutely gracious to us to give us time to reconcile with the word He had spoken over our lives, and understanding that He had shown us in every way that there was no other way to do things except His way, and that He has a purpose in that. And so, in walking in that purpose, being set free, understanding that it's going to hurt. There was some hurt in there, but we've been hurt very much so by our prior situations, right? And so, is it the hurt that comes from letting go? or is it the hurt that comes from trying to hold on to a bad situation? So, here, Trading Places Higher Learning has started the school, private school, here in Sunnyvale, California, in the Bay, Silicon Valley, California. And here we are, our first two students. This is our first student activity. And it's just an activity of letting go. It is the healing process. It is the mind, body, soul healing. The spirit is being healed. And part of that healing is doing things according to one, the word of the Most High, two, according to the spirit, and three, just walking in it, walking in the freedom, walking in what He's given to us. That we don't even know exactly what that is right now. But in trusting Him and knowing that when He says be strong and courageous, to not be afraid, that's what He means. Because He is with you, there is no need for you to be afraid. So I'm very thankful in today, and in this new way that, excuse me, that we're walking, in this new way that we're moving. We had our first fast last Sunday. We fast all day to ask the Most High to encourage us to let go. And I don't even think we realize that that's what He's done. The fact that we're even here, and this is just a little park over by our house, right? We just walked over. This park has been here. I don't think we've been here in 6 months, right? Why would you not come over? Because we were so discouraged, and the kids were so discouraged. And when they're discouraged, I'm discouraged. When they're not happy, I'm not happy, right? And so here we are all now, thanking Yah for bringing us to a place where we can be happy in just what we have. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how this is going to go. I just don't know, but I trust Him. And I know the smiles that I see and everything I see is different than what I've seen in quite some time. So, with that being said, I'm going to zoom in on them on this swing. All that they are just like tall as me, but still, I mean, on the slide, but they are still getting on slides and enjoying themselves. And this is a first for us. They are not weighed down by the oppression, but they are in the healing process. So I am thankful for that. So all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High. That was something, right? I've heard that a couple of times in the last week. Just listening, remembering back what it felt like in the very beginning and the uncertainty of it all. And as you heard, if you've listened, if it's your first time listening, Trading Places for Higher Learning is my first business that is still in its infancy stages, because I know that there is a place, that there needs to be a place where children can come or families can inquire and say, how do I do this? How do I educate them? How do I change what's happening to them, to me, to us? And I want to be that place, that beacon, right? That light somewhere in the tunnel. I don't have to be at the end of the tunnel, because who am I? But somewhere in there, just a flicker of hope. Somebody to say, yeah, I've been there. I know what you're going through. And I don't know what it looks like for you, but I can tell you what it turned out, or what it's turning out to be for me, right? My second business, a Family Affair Productions, is who is sponsoring these broadcasts, because it has taken us as a family to hold each other up, to encourage each other, to inspire, motivate, and pray for each other, because this has been a journey. It is a journey. It's a continuing journey. And like I said in that recording, I didn't know where this was going to go. I didn't know how I was going to do all of it. I've just been, I started out just barely making it through the days, trying to fill the time, to understanding that this is our time. We can do what we please, right? So now, going on bike rides in the middle of the day, watching people stare at me, and these two young, super, handsome and beautiful brown children riding our bikes in the bike lane down the street, 11 o'clock in the morning, for no apparent reason, just with inquisitive looks on their faces, right? That is probably one of the best moments for me. Saying, yeah, see you later. Huh, we're doing well, right? And so, all of this has been a long time coming. We didn't start here. We did not start riding bikes and going to the gym and sitting and having long discussions. It didn't start there. It started from a place of hurt, of uncertainty, of insecurity. And so we've gotten better, but we're still not healed yet because things take time. It took time for things to get that bad. It didn't happen overnight. We didn't even realize it was happening because nobody was talking about it, right? Nobody was discussing it. How well somebody was. Jawanza Confuju was talking about it back in 1983. I just didn't hear about it in my circles. And if I did hear about it, I was like, okay, well, that's them. We're fine. I didn't know. I didn't know there was a conspiracy. Now, I'm not a super duper fan of Umar Johnson, Dr. Umar Johnson. I'm not. But probably almost 10 years or better ago was the first time I heard him on YouTube and understood that there's something happening. But by that time, my oldest son, he was already an adult. My daughters had already finished school because it's girls too. It's not just the boys. They target the boys, but the girls fall too. And so I didn't even know. So I heard Dr. Umar Johnson speak, and I followed him. Still follow him on some social media, and I'll listen in every now and then. He can be quite controversial and kind of go on a rant and a tangent, this, that, and whatever. And so, take the meat, spit out the bones. That's where I'm at with that. And so when I realized the special education hook and the failing school districts and all of these things, by that time, we were already in the school system still. We were here. We weren't quite here. We were headed to Georgia when I heard about it. Right? And with the education system being what it is, because it was what I was brought up in. And like I said before, nobody, even the people that knew better, but in a way, maybe they don't. Maybe they're so into the system because, hey, it works for me. So I don't know why it doesn't work for you. Right? They're not saying that, oh, no, I was selected. I was one out of 550,000 and I'm here to make you think that there's something wrong with you not being here. That's my sole purpose. I don't have any other purpose. And if I don't serve this purpose, I'll be where you are too, right? That's just my personal side rabbit hole opinion. We go down the rabbit hole sometime here. That's just my opinion. So I just wanted to share it with you. As I'm watching what's going on in this country, I'm like, listen, this is the just in the nick of time moment for many of us, and we don't even know it. It's being extended to us, and we don't know it. So if you are a parent, an individual, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, a sister, a brother, a niece, a nephew, a cousin of someone who you know is in a just a nick of time moment and they're afraid to walk in it, I encourage you and I challenge you, I implore you. Have them walk in it. Help them. Say to them, this is the time. Don't wait. Walk in it. And if it's you, then walk in it. Don't be afraid. That's okay. And if you are afraid, that's okay. Just do it. Do it anyway. Right? You heard me rambling on in my recording, talking about how I didn't know what I was going to do, how I had them at the park, because that was my way of setting them free, right? Just giving them a moment to play and be around other kids. And, and they were still just playing by themselves, just those two together. And nobody walked up and asked, hey, you guys want to play? You want to play tag? Nope. Mm-mm. Right? But now, 2 years later, 2.5, please, we are out here enjoying our lives, right? And we're doing the best we can to heal. Yes, there is a stigma with mental health. There is a stigma about talking to somebody about hurt you, what ails you. We are in the process of finding representation in that space so that we can continue to grow. Because sometimes you grow as far as you can and then you need a step up so you can take it to the next level. So we are leveling up in every area. So I want to thank you for tuning in. I don't like to keep you too long. Of course, you can always find us. There's a link in the bio here. If you're listening on a platform, then you found my page and you can go to the link and go to Amazon. Check out our collection of low content books. The Pain of Holding On versus the Pain of Letting Go. I have right now one version, but there are 3 or 4 versions of that, meaning covers, in the making. And there are many other journals, planners, sketchbooks. If you have young kids and you're considering homeschooling them in preschool, do it. Kindergarten, do it. You're teaching them everything now anyway. What do you want them to know? What do you want them to see? What do you want their exposure to be? You want them to be an astronaut? Then teach them about science. Teach them all that you can. Give them everything that is science all the time. You want them to be a mathematician? Teach them math. Do it. You can do it. And if you yourself don't know how, let me tell you something. Hire a professional. 2 hours a week. There are people out here who will tutor your kids with no problem. And they will do a great job because they want your business. You don't have to know how to do everything. You can pay somebody. I had my kids take self-defense classes. Am I a street fighter back in the day? Yeah. Today, not so much. What did I do? I hired a trainer. He taught us self-defense. And when we were done, we moved on. Right? So you don't have to try to do it all. There's some trial and error. But if this is your moment, then take it. Don't be afraid to take it. Right? So anyway, like I was saying, back to, I went down another rabbit hole. I can't help it. I'm just passionate about this. I'm passionate about people not being afraid anymore and knowing that it's okay if you are, and even if you are afraid to do it, and that you're not alone. That's the thing. It's not just you. There are many of us. We're just scattered all over. But it's not just you. So anyway, go to Amazon. A Family Affair Productions, LLC. Stacy Gray. You could probably find me there. A couple of my things are on a separate page, but I have links down here, or you can find us on YouTube at A Family Affair Productions, LLC. We appreciate your support. If you want to get a planner, a journal, we have a recipe book and all kind of little fun stuff. So grab a couple of things. It's Amazon. We got Prime. Then they'll deliver it for free. The prices are awesome. And it just helps us. And it gives you some of the tools that we used, right, during this 2 year period, because journaling has absolutely been freeing. Absolutely been freeing. Just being able to say it, even if you can't say it to another person, you can write it down and you put your journal away and it's yours. You don't have to write properly or spell it or grammatically. It is just your words. Get them out. Let some word bombing out on that paper. So anyway, that's the end of that. Thank you so much for tuning in to A Family Affair Productions. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.